We are less than 4 months from the presidential election. The general election campaign is in full swing. And yes, a presidential campaign looks very different during a global pandemic. There are far fewer rallies to fly to, less bunting to pay for. But presidential campaigns do still cost money, and the receipts from this campaign are starting to pour in. Check this out from Washington Post reporter David Fahrenthold. This is a list of expenses made by the Trump campaign over a 2-day period earlier in the year. There are 43 separate charges, each for a varying amount between $2,000 and $10,000. But each of these transactions has something in common. They were all made directly to the president's personal business, listed here as payments to the Trump Hotel collection. When you add them all up, it shows that the Trump campaign poured $380,000 directly into the president's pocket just over a 2-day span. The Trump Organization told David Fahrenthold that all that money was for a week-long donor retreat held at Mar-a-Lago in early March, which I suppose is one way to look at the Trump campaign pouring hundreds of thousands of dollars into the president's personal businesses. David Fahrenthold offers another way of looking at it, calling those payments, quote, campaign donations turned into private revenue for the President of the United States. Joining us now is David Fahrenthold from the Washington Post. He won a Pulitzer Prize for his reporting on the Trump family business. David, thank you for being here. Whenever you break something new about the money, I know that it is always going to be something that we watch from this point forward. So tell me what you're watching from this point forward and how the president and his kids, and they really had a body posture of, oh, nothing to see here, when people worried about the emoluments case and they worried about political patrons and people trying to curry favor going to the hotels. It's clear now that they have operationalized that, at least at the campaign.
That's right. One key promise that Trump made when he was running for president and after he'd won was that he would separate himself from his business. He wouldn't work there, he wouldn't tell them what to do, and he would not profit from the presidency. What we're seeing now is that they've just thrown that last bit out the window, and they're using the presidency and his control over government money and over campaign money to put millions of dollars into the pockets of Donald Trump himself. This is one you cited was a good example of how campaign money is used in that way. Trump holds a lot of campaign events in his properties. He sets the rate that his properties charge his campaign, and bingo, donors' money becomes his private money. The same thing has happened with government money. When Trump goes to his properties, federal officials come along, Trump gets to charge his government whatever he wants, and in some cases it's been as much as $650 a night for a hotel room. So that's $970,000 at least that we know of taxpayer money in his pocket. These are both things that he controls, and he turns somebody else's money into his money.
David, how were the laws so porous that this wasn't stopped immediately? I mean, I worked in the White House. The ethics laws were so stringent, a reporter or a donor couldn't buy a cup of coffee for a White House official. How is he enriching himself both from the taxpayer and from political donors?
Well, there's a lot of ethics laws that restrict what federal employees can do, but they don't bind the president. The president and the vice president were exempted from that on the theory that, presidents and vice presidents should have more freedom. They're chosen by the voters. They're not, they're accountable to the voters. It was an honor system, and Trump has always looked at honor systems, whether it was a charitable honor system, a business honor system, as a moment of opportunity. Other people play by the rules just because he breaks the rules and then waits for somebody else to come tell him to come after him. Often they don't. So this is a case where the president doesn't have to follow the rules everybody else does. Presidents always did because they were afraid of what it looked like. Trump here is obviously not afraid of what it looks like, and he's exploiting that loophole.
I have to get you on the record on the president posing with a can of black beans this week, the Goya era.
Well, and again, these are rules that don't apply to the president. Normally, White House officials, federal officials are prohibited, like Ivanka Trump, are prohibited from using their position to advertise a particular, any sort of product, beans or anything else. But one thing that struck me about Trump's pose with a giant can of beans is that he has gone down sort of these rabbit holes where unless you watch Fox News 9 hours a day, you don't really know what he's talking about. And so you just see this thing out of context.
So true.
Here's the president with like 7 cans of beans. And you say, well, you know, what is this? If you look back at 2016, that's not what he was like. He was good at speaking to everybody, being memorable to everybody. And now, like I said, you really have to be a dedicated Fox viewer to even understand it.
You just put your finger on the entire conversation we should be having every day. This is not what he was like 4 years ago. And if you pair that picture with the beans, with the Rose Garden event this week, that is certainly not what he sounded like. David Fahrenthold, it is always a pleasure to get to talk to you and to get to read your new reporting. I'm grateful that you made time for us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.